While looking at the game's customization and stat system, I came to notice something. There's no defense stat listed. That got me thinking, do different characters take different amounts of damage? Is there an actual defense stat in this game that they are hiding? The answer is yes. I think the most fun way to give this information is to do a little tier list of the characters that takes the most damage up to the ones that take the least. Before getting to the list, I'm sure you want to know how I got these numbers in the first place. Simple, I had Caulifla do 5 normal punches and looked at the damage. There are some oddities and other stuff to get into, but the basic list itself was based on that. Now on to the list. F tier. Starting with the character that takes the most damage, we have Babidi at 3,256. Maybe not your first guess, but probably not far off if it wasn't. It's a good thing he has a barrier because he could not take a hit at all. Great for setting up one-hit kills to farm Dragon Balls though. Next up we have 3,128 damage. This is populated by 3 characters, Birder, Dispo, and Kakunsa. This surprised me. I know they're fast characters, but man, they all have glass jaws. I guess this is the downside of having all that speed. Coming in at damn near the bottom, we have Chaozu at 3,121. This is just sad. He takes this much damage without any real way to deal with it. Justice for Chaozu extends further than his moveset, it seems. At 3,026, we have Mr. Satan. He is shockingly tanky. I mean, he still can't take a hit, but look at how many characters are weaker than him. Would you have really guessed that Dispo had lower defense than Satan? I wouldn't have. D tier. Finally leaving the 3000s, we have Rosie at 2,984. She barely makes it out of the F tier that's taking over 3,000 damage. I'm not even sure why with this one either. Maybe it's just because Kakunsa is also so low it feels like both shouldn't be down here, but here we are. Our first GT character makes the list with Pan at 2,895. At least she's comfortably away from 3,000, but it's not like this is a good place to be. Although I wouldn't expect her to have high defense, so it's not too shocking she's here. And now we have the first big block, and it's the third largest one at that. We have 18 characters that all took 2,844 damage. At this level, we have Kid Gohan, Krillin, Cyberman, Zarbon, Goldo, all of Team Gohan, Videl, both Gotens, Evil Boo, Tapion, and all of GT Goku, minus Super Saiyan 4, Dragon Ball Goku, and Daima Goku. Plenty of characters you would guess to have defense around here with the likes of Videl, So Many Kids, and Goldo. But what are Tapion, Evil Boo, and Teen Gohan doing here? You would think Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan could take a hit better than the rest. If it isn't clear by now, this list will not play out the way you think it will. After that surprise, we have another. Whis at 2,832. I'll admit, he was really annoying to hit since he just dodges normal rush attacks, even with no ki, so I had to do a weak charge attack to actually hit him. A little math later, and I get this number. The damage was consistent across a few hits, so I'm confident his auto dodge just lowered his defense. Fair enough, I suppose. And to wrap up D tier, we have 13 characters that took 2,713 damage. This list is every base form Vegeta, first form Frieza, Mecha Frieza, both 17s, 18, Toppo, Frost, Turles, and base 13. I really did not expect every base form Vegeta to really take more damage. This list is basically made up of characters that have you going, really? Each time. And at this point, you're probably asking why I consider this taking more damage. Well, to answer that question, let's go to C tier. C tier. At 2,585, we have what I call standard damage. Why do I call it this? Because 79 characters take it. This is way too many characters to list here, but if 43% of the roster is going to take this damage, I'm confident in this metric to call it C tier and judge everything else off of it. If you don't hear a character listed, just assume they fell in here. B tier. Moving to the B tier, we have characters that have higher than average defense. We have Ribrianne taking an infuriating 2,579. I had to hit her for like 2 minutes straight to make sure I wasn't getting trolled, but yes, she took 6 less damage. Consistently. It's at a point where I have to admit she takes less damage, but be utterly confused that it's such a small amount. Like, why even do this? Next, we have another group of 6 characters that are barely tankier than normal. We have Third Form Frieza, God and Blue Goku, God and Blue Vegeta, and Golden Frieza. So I guess the grouping of characters is thematic, except for Third Form there. Still, it's only 51 damage, which is about 2% less. Less damage is less damage, but we've barely left standard. At 2,508, we've moved a bit further away. We have 5 characters at this tier, with Super Vegeta, Second Form Cell, Full Power Jiren, and both UI Gokus. At this point, we're starting to see some actual differences in damage, but not enough to really be tanky yet. More like, we'll take one more combo to put down or something. In a fun group, at 2,503, we have Berserk Kale, Legendary Super Saiyan Broly, and Full Power Super Saiyan Broly. So, the Hyper Armor Gang. There's something very fun and interesting about this group, but that's getting into the details we'll get into after the list is done. Is this just my way to get you to watch more of the video? Sure is! It's been a while, but we're back to just a single character at 2,483 damage. It's Omega Shenron. You will have noticed we don't have Sin on the list yet, so yes, transforming with him will lower your defense. Granted, he still takes less damage, so it's not all bad. And here we are with the second biggest group of characters with 22 that took 2,458. The characters at this level are 2nd and 100% Frieza, King Cold, Super Trunks, Vegito, and Super Vegito, every Gotenks, Spopovich, every Kefla, Slug, 5th Form Cooler, both Super Saiyan Broly's, Bojack, and every Gogeta that isn't blue. Whew! Long list there with some characters that might surprise some people, like basically every fusion. You wouldn't think Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Spopovich would stay the same stat tier, huh? After that large tier, we have another solo one, Super Saiyan Trunks at 2,429. The fact he takes more damage after transforming into Super Trunks was a decision. You would think the slow form with huge muscles would be the tankier one, but you'd be wrong. Another example of a character with a bad moveset getting screwed over on defense. Now I have Chaozu and Super Trunks in the same group, and that's super weird. A tier. Let's call this the start of A tier. At 2,408 damage, we have Monster Zarbon, 19, Blue Vegito, Blue Gogeta, Sin Shenron, and Max Power Roshi. Bet you didn't see these characters sharing a group, huh? I figured the GT villain and the fusions are one thing, but Zarbon, 19, and Roshi, making it this high up? This game has some wild defense stats. Only 2 characters here at 2,383, that being Super Bojack and Corrupted Zamasu. You know, we're really starting to get weirder groupings the longer this goes on. Although you certainly can't ignore the damage reduction we've got going on now. We've finally gotten to the point where we can start calling people tanky now. In the next group, we have 3 big boys taking 2,359 damage. Those being Fat Boo, Garlic Jr., and Super 13. The trucker hat has no defense values on it, making it a waste of weight. I'm starting to run out of ways of talking about this. Luckily, we're almost done. In the second to last group for A tier, we have Nappa and 16 taking 2,259 damage. Both of them always seem to have high defense in whatever game they end up in, so nothing really shocking here. I bet a lot of you guessed they'd end up here already. Although someone seems to be missing here, huh? Which brings us to the end of A tier and the end of non-giant characters. Taking the small amount of 2,212 damage, we have Beerus, God of Destruction Topo, and Recoome. At this point, I'm wondering what Recoome is hiding. You don't just get grouped with 2 Gods of Destruction and just be some guy. There's something going on here that needs to be investigated immediately. It's all giants from here on out. Before we get to their physical defense, I will make a quick note. While damage taken from Caulifla's Super followed this list, against giants, not so much. So if you want to ignore this part, go for it. Still, I was focusing on physical defense, so back to the list. S tier. The giants that took the most damage are Ape Vegeta and Hirudegarn, taking the huge amount of 1,723 damage. It's a big drop-off, huh? Basically, don't melee giants asterisk. Ignore that asterisk, it isn't important. A solo group here with Relo taking 1,689 damage. It's only going to get lower from here on out. We're almost done with this long list. To keep things moving, we have Giant Slug at 1,673. Not much of a difference here, but hey, less damage is less damage. Luckily, we have both Janemba and Annie Laza taking 1,603 damage. That means we only have 1 character left. so if you've been paying attention, you should know who it is. The question is, how much damage is it? The answer is 1,554 damage. Also, it's 8 baby if you weren't keeping track of everyone mentioned. He is the king of physical defense at least, so I guess really don't melee him. Weird stuff. With the list done, let's get to that weirdness I kept hinting at. That being, Hyper Armor does stuff. As you know, some characters don't get stunned when punched normally. The weirdness comes from the fact that Hyper Armor seems to actually raise defense. To show this, let's take Broly here. He takes 2,503 damage, but if we give Caulifla an item that lets her break Hyper Armor, he now takes 2,629. Also, if we have Caulifla with this item hit anything without Hyper Armor, it does nothing. To add on to this, we have an item that gives any character Hyper Armor. It also lowers defense, but that won't really matter here. So putting it on Goku, he takes 2,887 damage from the lower defense, but will take 3,102 if it's broken. Same goes for Giants. So this does mean that characters have the ability to break Hyper Armor built in are even better at dealing with those armor characters than they seem at first. Of course, items can also boost defense. A quick note here, if you give that item to Mark and let him stun people, it does not increase his damage, further showing that it's the Hyper Armor itself doing something, and not just being able to stun with rush attacks. Defense items. Wait, there's only one? Seriously? Oh well. The sad thing is, this item does not work the way it used to in previous games. Before, it was with each health bar lost you would gain some defense. Now it seems to work on a health percentage. So once you lose 25% of your health, you get the first boost, 50% for the second, and 75% for the final one. This is a shame, as stacking health with this was so fun before. Each defense bonus is stronger than the one before it, but with this being the only item to boost defense, it's really disappointing. There are plenty of ways to lower defense, but this is just the one way of raising it. Also, I did test the items that boost your stats on certain planets, and it did nothing to defense at all. Yeah, there are abilities that can boost defense as well, but this has gone on long enough. If people care, I can look into other things later. What does seem to be true is that they don't want you to be able to build as a tank in this game. They certainly have defense as a thing, but they don't really want you playing with it. Also, the only item stacks better if your character already has high defense anyway, so you can make a tanky character tankier, but a squishy one will be squishy forever. When I started this journey to answer my question about if characters had different defense levels, I did not expect to end up here. There are some interesting and fun mechanics at play here, but you really can't interact with it outside of just knowing some characters take less damage than others.